Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have the Game Week 38 preview where we'll be discussing the best players to buy for the final game week of the season. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So I thought a nice place to start might just be contextualising where we are going into Game Week 38 in terms of the Premier League table and which teams actually have something to fight for. Now, I will just say, I do think having motivation and something to fight for is potentially being slightly overplayed in the FPL community in terms of the players that don't have anything to play for. It doesn't mean they suddenly can't play football and don't score goals. For example, Liverpool got 2 goals despite them being very much on the beach against Brighton. So teams can still score goals, teams can still keep clean sheets. And actually, sometimes we might see teams with motivation have nerves. Teams that have no motivation, or again on the beach, they might play with a bit of freedom. What I do think motivation and having something to play for does give you is very, very secure minutes. Because when I look at Bournemouth and Arsenal, obviously Bournemouth versus Leicester is probably the fixture to target out of all of them. And then after that, you'd probably say it's Arsenal, Southampton. Like if you're looking at 2 mismatched teams, those are the fixtures to target. But neither of them have anything to play for. Again, I still think Bournemouth and Arsenal win comfortably, but you just don't know who's going to start in those cases. Whereas something like Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea, you absolutely know that both teams are going full strength. So the likes of Chris Wood and Cole Palmer, you can fully secure their minutes. So that is what I think it is important for. In terms of who actually has something left to play for then, we've basically got the fight for the top 5 for Champions League football, which is City, Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa and Forest. So all of those teams can still finish in the top 5. Obviously, Arsenal and Liverpool are secured the top 5. And then we've got the fight for 8th place. The fight for 8th place now is only between 2 teams, which is Brighton and Brentford. It does need a series of events to happen for 8th place to actually get European football. Chelsea have to win the Europa Conference League, which isn't until after the Game Week 38 series of games. So they won't know that, these teams, but Chelsea have to win that. And then they have to finish 7th place, or they have to finish 6th place with Newcastle 7th place. I guess the important thing is here, because Brighton and Brentford won't know that until their games are over, and of course until Chelsea have what I would imagine secured the Europa Conference League, this means that Brighton and Brentford have to go into Game Week 38 thinking that 8th place will get them Europe. So yeah, those are the teams that have something to play for. What I have noticed though with teams that have something to play for, and please don't take a shot every time I say that statement, I actually think that their games have been quite cagey. I look at the way that Aston Villa have played recently, and also Chelsea versus Manchester United. Their games have been very low-scoring games for the most part. And almost teams are maybe slightly afraid to lose, so they're not going as much to win. Like what you don't want to do going into Game Week 38 if you're trying to secure Champions League football is commit every man forward to try and score a goal and then get caught on the counter-attack. So I don't necessarily expect the teams that have that motivation to go all out 5-0, 6-0. We might actually see the games between Forest Chelsea being goalless at half-time, maybe 0-0 after 70 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if Villa versus Manchester United, again, is like a 1-0 to Aston Villa. So, I mean, you decide the narrative that you want to fall into here. I just thought it would be worth mentioning that unless the team is highlighted in green, so unless the team is City, Villa, Newcastle, Forest, Chelsea, Brighton or Brentford, rotation could be a little bit of an issue. But for those teams, you would imagine that they go as full strength as they possibly can. Just in terms of my season, this isn't my team selection, so I'll make it very brief, but just so you can contextualise where my brain is currently at, I'm recording this directly after the Tuesday evening games, and my live rank is something around 12k, which puts me about 6 points off the top 10k. So in my mind, I'm thinking I might need to take a few risks, but I don't need to go completely differential. But that's sort of where my headspace is at, and a bit of an update on where I'm currently at in my season as well. So yeah, battle for top 5, battle for 8 is going to be exciting. Let's now discuss some other stuff, including the best players to buy this week. So guys, I have been asked a few questions recently. Ross, what are you doing over the summer? And don't worry, this isn't an ad section. This is me actually asking for your help. So for those of you that have watched the channel for a while, especially the deadline streams, you will know that I am doing a PhD in sports psychology, specifically looking at the role of virtual reality in elite football. And I'm conducting the data collection for the final study of my PhD. And I really need participants. So probably I would say over the months of sort of July, August, September, but it might be a little bit of a bigger period of time. I'm basically asking people to come down to the lab in Nottingham in the UK. So if you're not in the UK, feel free to skip. If you are and you want to travel, please feel free to do so. Don't travel too far though. But if you can get to Nottingham relatively easily, if you play football on a semi-regular or regular basis, and you want to help me conduct some research, which is exploring the role of virtual reality in elite sport, I would really appreciate you reaching out. So basically what you would do is take part in a series of sort of one-on-one drills from the perspective of a defender using the virtual reality headset. If you're watching this and you helped me for the previous study, you can still reach out and do this because it's a new one. So if you helped before, please reach out again. And if you haven't reached out before, please consider doing so. It's honestly some pretty cool research. You get to use the same technology that is used by Premier League footballers, and I can't say which ones, but plenty have enjoyed it this season. And yeah, it just massively helps me out. It will take about 45 to 60 minutes. It's a one-off visit, doesn't require anything else beyond that. You can come say hello to me. We can chat about the upcoming season as well. And yeah, it would help me a lot over the summer. But that's what I'll be doing with my time. Let me know what you'll be doing with your time in the summer as well. And yes, if you are going to reach out, ross.dowsett@ntu.ac.uk, or you can just use the email fplraptor@gmail.com if it's easier. Thank you if you have watched this. Let's now get back to the video. So going into Game Week 38, there is always this narrative that Game Week 38 is an absolute goal fest and we just expect loads of goals and absolutely no clean sheets. And of course, the wonderful Rob TFPL has actually done that research and put it in a very presentable graphic. And if you're not yet following Rob on all of his socials, I highly recommend it. I think he's just at Rob TFPL on all platforms. So go check out his stuff. Fantastic as always. It's just a nice presentable way to actually look at this. So what we've got on this graph here is on the y-axis, we've got average goals per game. So on the vertical axis, average goals per game, obviously all the way up to 3.9 is the highest here. And then on each of the sort of sets of bars, we've got the season. In grey, it's the average goals per game for game weeks 1 to 37. And then in orange, it's the average goals per game for game week 38. There's also, for each of the seasons, the biggest scoreline from that season. You can actually see in all of the last 5 seasons, there has been a 5-0 battering of a team. 2 of those have been Norwich. So it's sadly we don't have Norwich in the Prem for this one, and no offence Norwich fans. But you can see that there have been a 5-0 win for City against Norwich, a 5-0 win for City against Everton, a 5-0 win for Spurs against Norwich, 5-0 for Arsenal against Wolves. And then last season, it was actually when I bought Eberechi Eze, lots of people went for Mateta. Crystal Palace beat Aston Villa 5-0. So we probably are expecting one big score. And the other thing is, when I look at this, yes, there is an uptick in the amount of goals per game in Game Week 38 in comparison to the rest of the season in every season. So I absolutely do expect more goals in 38 based on the data that we can see here in comparison to the rest of the season. What I would say, though, I had a bit of a look at the clean sheet data. Last season, we had 4 clean sheets in Game Week 38. That's not particularly bad. Like, often we'll only get 4 in a normal game week. So there are still going to be clean sheets. And you can see from just the scores that are actually on your screen, teams will keep clean sheets. So I don't necessarily hugely buy into the narrative that you shouldn't have defend, or you shouldn't like buy defenders or target defenders. There will still be clean sheets this week. And the other thing is, apart from the 21-22 season, we are talking about very small increases in the amount of goals per game. Like, let's take last season, for example, 3.3 goals per game on average across the season. Game week 38, it was 3.7. So rather than 33 goals, we're looking at 37, so 4 extra goals. That's all. Again, I'm not going to run a statistical analysis on this, but if you do academia, you'd probably say you wouldn't be surprised if that's not a significant result. Like, there's not a massive margin between the two there. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. I think this is more interesting than necessarily giving us too much information on what to expect. But there will still be clean sheets. Yes, there probably will be some extra goals scored. Yes, there probably will be one team that batters another. But you often do expect that in a normal game week. Like, if you go through each of the game weeks, there's normally one team that batters another. So I wouldn't put too much weight into this. But generally, yeah, let's go all out, attack some, at least attacking defenders or midfielders and forwards. And that's what we're going to look at for the final 3 sections who are some spicy buys for the final week. So let's start with the defenders, and another narrative that's going around a little bit at the moment, and to be honest, I've probably said this myself at some point, is that you can't buy defenders in Game Week 38, right? There are so many fun midfielders and forwards to own. I would say the list of midfielders and forwards that I'd like to own or at least buy right now is dwindling by the second. So if you're in a similar position to me, and especially if your defense doesn't look great, by all means go out there and buy a defender, because I was actually discussing this with Praz on FPL Therapy this week, which is my podcast that I started this season. Feel free to check it out, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, just type in FPL Therapy. You guys know Praz, I'm sure, from the FPL Wire. He's a fantastic manager. And we were discussing that a defender getting a 15-pointer probably isn't that much less likely than an attacker. Because think about it, a defender's got to get a clean sheet, which does happen, right? They don't even have to have a good game to get a clean sheet, and then score a goal or get an assist, get those double digits. Let's say we're going with a 15-pointer that Ezri Konsa delivered very nicely for us last week, if you owned him, of course. For an attacker to do that, a midfielder can do that with a brace and full bonus, right? For a forward to do that, they've got to get 2 goals and an assist, and again, bonus points. A hat-trick, 3 goals for a forward, which doesn't happen very often, is only 17. So I'm not saying that I expect these defenders to outscore the attackers per se, but if your defense is looking weak and your attack is looking very good, and you think there's a high upside defender that has a good chance for a clean sheet and has some attacking threat, you just need to get a little bit lucky and they can come away with a big score. We've seen it time and time again. I'm finding it very difficult, right? Because if we go down the narrative of a team should have something to play for, they should be playing at home with a good fixture, a good defence, Newcastle fit the bill for absolutely everything. Everton are not a good attack. We know that Newcastle are a fantastic defence. If you actually look at the team XGC per 90 over the last 10 game weeks, Newcastle were the best defence in the league at 0.95 XGC. So they're defending well, they're playing at home, they've got everything to play for. Everton aren't a good attack. And Livramento and Fabian Schär are carrying some serious attacking threat. 0.16 XA for Livramento, 0.15 for Fabian Schär. And Dan Burn, eye test-wise, Dan Burn has been getting on the end of a lot of set pieces. He's had a few chances to get even more attacking returns recently. So again, if I go through my framework of what I'm looking for a defender in the final week, they arguably should be right at the top. But I just look at those Leicester and Southampton games for Bournemouth and for Arsenal, and I look at what I think. The data doesn't massively support this, but Kirkes and Ben White will be up and down the wings. And again, you could look at it as no motivation. You could look at it as they have lots of freedom, right? They've got nothing to play for, yes, but that also means they might be able to get a little bit further forward. I don't know which sort of camp I want to fall into here, but it's very difficult to overlook Leicester at home and Southampton away. We also know that Bournemouth, whilst they don't have anything to play for, they've been okay defensively this season. You can see that their defensive data isn't bad even across the last 10. And Kirkes does have a fantastic delivery. Again, the data hasn't been brilliant for him. So if you're going for more of a data pick, Livramento, especially if he continues to play at left wing back, has been more attacking. Ben White should start because we're not expecting Timber back. Yes, they could play someone else in right back, but I reckon they'll just try and get some minutes for Ben White because he's not played many this season. So yeah, I don't know. I think any of those top sort of 4, I would probably go for Livramento or Schär rather than Dan Burn because, again, we're looking at the underlying data, it's better. So I think any of Kirkes, White, Livramento, Fabian Schär, they're all fantastic. If you want to buy players with something to play for, by all means go for Livramento and Schär. If you're targeting the fixture more than anything, it's difficult to overlook Leicester at home and Southampton away. I do also have Calafiori on here. This could be Kivior. I think the back 4 will probably be, I mean, it could be anyone at left back, like a Tierney at left back. I think it'll be Calafiori, Kivior, Ben White. I know a lot of people will say that Arsenal, again, I'm sorry for keep saying this, but lack of motivation, nothing to play for in the league. But David Raya is still on for the Golden Glove. So I fully expect David Raya to play, and therefore I fully expect Arsenal to do everything they can to win David Raya the Golden Glove. Like, he will be very, very aware of that, and he will be absolutely going for it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a really solid defensive performance. Right now, if you would say who are you most confident in keeping a clean sheet, it probably is Arsenal still, even ahead of Newcastle. So yeah, Calafiori, Kivior. I probably wouldn't go outside anyone of White, Calafiori, Kivior. I think those would be the top 3. And this is under the assumption, of course, that Saliba doesn't play, and I just can't see it happening. You've then got a really attacking defender, right? Ryan Ait-Nouri has just been ridiculous. He's got the best assist threat on this list and the second best goal threat. Wolves haven't been bad, but Brentford, again, are trying to get 8th, and they know for a fact, at the very least, they need to win, right? They have to win to get 8th, and they need Brighton to lose. But I just can't see Wolves keeping Brentford out in this game. Like, Brentford are a fantastic attack. I've got Mbeumo and Wissa in my team, and I'm very happy. So if we're not expecting a clean sheet, you are then reliant on an attacking return. So I think for that reason, the fixture's just not quite there. And I've put Wan-Bissaka on. If you're looking for a cheap defender, again, playing against one of the promoted teams and relegated teams in Ipswich, and he's had some assist threat in recent weeks. But I just think I would definitely prefer at that stage, just go for a Dan Burn if you need a cheap defender. So yeah, I really don't mind anyone on this list. I did have a list. Wait, hold up. Where was it? Oh, the only other defenders that I've not put on here that I actually don't mind is Forest. I'm seeing a lot of people benching Forest defenders. If you was to ask me right now to predict Chelsea Forest, I think Forest could sneak it 1-0. I think we could see a bit of like that proper Nottingham Forest grinding, because both teams, again, are going to be afraid to lose that game. I think that game will be 0-0 for a fairly long time. Unless you just get if you get a goal in the opening 10, then that could completely change the outlook. But the longer it goes on, it's going to be very, very nervy. And then at that stage, around 60, 70 minutes, yes, Forest will probably have to go for it if it is still 0-0. But I just think that Forest, everything they've done well this season is building on a solid defensive foundation. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them do well. I think I've pretty much covered everyone there. Let me know down below if there are any defenders that I didn't discuss that you thought would be a good idea. But for me, I think you're looking at Kirkes or White. And if you're not going there, I would go for a Newcastle defender. So moving on to the midfield, and I am a little bit biased because I bought Jarrod Bowen in Game Week 33, and he is the sole reason that I'm anywhere close to the top 10k. I captained him a few weeks ago as well, and in the season where I had my highest ever Game Week rank, or my highest ever live rank, I was 99th in the world 2 or 3 seasons ago. I'll probably never get there again. But that week, Jarrod Bowen got me like a 19-pointer. So I always enjoy owning Jarrod Bowen. There have been very few times that I've bought him and he's not got me points. And he's just so consistent for attacking returns. Yes, he doesn't always go absolutely massive, but I'm basically an absolutely massive Jarrod Bowen fan. So I'm very biased. But when I break it down this week, I think he is the only midfielder that is a fantastic buy. I think after Jarrod Bowen, and maybe to some extent Brian Mbeumo, but a lot of people already own him. After Jarrod Bowen, I literally can't see a midfielder that I feel really comfortable buying that has pretty much everything you would want. Because with Jarrod Bowen, his minutes are always super, super secure, right? Anything could happen in Game Week 38, right? You never know, but his minutes have always been pretty secure. Paquetá's not started the last 2 or 3 games, so if he's not on the pitch, Bowen would have penalties. He takes some set pieces depending upon if Ward-Prowse is on the pitch or not, but he could take set pieces. He's talismanic. He's been involved in the highest percentage goal involvement of any player in the Premier League this season. It's up at 58% of West Ham's goals. So basically, if West Ham score 2 goals, Jarrod Bowen is usually involved in at least one of them. He's got the fixture to target. Ipswich, we know all season Ipswich have struggled with conceding chances down their left side. He's got goal threat, he's got assist threat. I just look at it and just think there are very few midfielders that have pretty much everything you would want from them this week. So whilst it does feel a little bit template, and I think pretty much everyone buying a midfielder will go Jarrod Bowen this week, I think it's for good reason. At the moment, he's got my captaincy armband. I don't see tons of great captaincy options even necessarily this week, other than perhaps Mohamed Salah, who isn't here because I assume you either own or you're just not going there. But even he is not in a particularly good run of form. So I just think Jarrod Bowen's arguably the best midfielder to own for Game Week 38. In second place, as of about 2 hours ago, was Justin Kluivert. You now see that Justin Kluivert isn't even on this list. Now, I might regret making that move, like in terms of removing him from the graphic, if we get some news. Like, I'm recording this directly after the game, but he was subbed at half-time for Brooks. He didn't start the last game, and I think Brooks was the one that started instead. So he's now got back-to-back 45 minutes. The 2 games prior to that, Justin Kluivert got like 60 and 70 minutes. So he's not getting anywhere close to good enough minutes. He didn't start 2 games ago. He then comes off at half-time. I just don't know that you can go there now. I mean, if I had him, I'd definitely keep and start him because I imagine he will start again, but I just don't think you can buy an asset that you just can't confirm their minutes. And also, there are like really other decent midfielders in and around that price. The thing is with Kluivert, though, he's a penalty taker and a set-piece taker. Like, he has those 2 extra routes to points. And we know he's quality as well. On a given day, especially against a team like Leicester, Kluivert could get a 25-point or a 20-plus pointer. He's shown that this season getting his hat-tricks. So I find it difficult because he, again, is right up there with Bowen of pretty much everything you'd want, but the minutes aren't there. So for that reason, I've dropped him out of the list completely. But If we have good reason to believe that his minutes will shoot up, if David Brooks picked up an injury or something along those lines, then maybe he would go back onto the list. Bryan Mbeumo's in second. If you don't already own him, the only reason I would buy a Bryan Mbeumo is because you're protecting and you're happy with where you're at. If you're not protecting and you are chasing, there is no point buying Bryan Mbeumo. Pretty much everyone has him. He will gain you nothing. He'll protect you and he'll stop you losing points, but he's not going to gain you anything at this stage. Saka is in third. I'm finding this difficult because, again, if I knew that Saka was starting, he would be right up there alongside Bowen, potentially even ahead of Bowen. But I'm trying to go in under the assumption for this video that we don't get leaks and that we don't know if a player starts. We might do on the deadline stream, but not everyone can wait until the deadline stream to make their moves. So under the assumption that we don't know if Saka starts, I just don't know how many minutes he gets. I don't even know if some of the Arsenal players even travel. Like, what is the point in risking them? They've had their Game Week 37 final home fixture. They've got second place unless something goes horribly wrong. I think City can still win it on goal difference or get second on goal difference. But basically, they've got second place. They've got Champions League football. They can beat Southampton with their B team. There's just no need to run Saka into the ground. So yeah, he might start, but will he make 60? Will he make 70? I just don't know. And he might only need 30 minutes to do damage, but I'm struggling right now to put him any higher than third. And I even considered dropping him lower, but his goal threat's good. His assist threat's good. He's on penalties. He's on set pieces, and it is Southampton. So I had to have him relatively high up. Honestly, after Bowen and Mbeumo and Saka, if you think he starts, the list does dwindle down. I still think Luis Diaz will start the final home game of the season. I think he's been brilliant for Liverpool this season. He obviously didn't start in Game Week 37, but neither did Van Dijk. So I kind of expect a couple of Liverpool players to come back into the 11. We know that Arne Slot said we're probably not going to get peak Liverpool in 37 against Brighton, but come the final home game, it will be the Liverpool that you know. So I think Liverpool will go full strength because it's their final home game. It's the day that they lift the trophy. We know that Crystal Palace are very much still in sort of celebration mode, and I think they'll score goals in this game themselves, but I don't think they'll be particularly resolute to stop Liverpool. We saw that, in fact, in Game Week 37 with the 4-2 win against Wolves. So basically, I expect this to be a game where Liverpool score goals. Diaz has brilliant goal threat. He's probably got, even more than Salah, the most goal threat of any Liverpool player right now. You can see over the last 10 weeks, 0.59 non-pen XG per 90. He's even got decent assist threat as well. I just fancy Liverpool to score 3 to 4 goals, and I think Diaz is probably at the heart of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Diaz outscores Salah. We're going to discuss Gakpo in the next section as well if we think he starts, but I guess there is still a chance that Luis Diaz doesn't start this game. And I think that is the only... again, if Luis Diaz, I knew that he was starting and we got a leak, then maybe he would go a little bit higher for me, or I would at least be a bit more confident. Let me know down below, Liverpool fans, what you think. But I think he's a great option. I've then got two Newcastle attackers, actually, in Gordon and Barnes. The only reason Murphy isn't here is because he's been playing right wing back and he's got some assist threat, but very limited goal threat. And you want your player to be able to get a 15-plus pointer. I think Gordon and Barnes on their day both have a really high ceiling. We've seen that across the last 2 seasons. Harvey Barnes recently, Gordon last season. They've both got multiple goals in them in a given game. I don't necessarily expect Newcastle to win this like 5 or 6-0, but if you told me the scoreline was like 4-0 to Newcastle, I wouldn't be surprised. And the reason for that, Tarkowski and probably Branthwaite out for 38. Branthwaite pulled up with what looked like a hamstring issue. Again, Everton don't have anything to play for. It's not their home game, right? They've had that Goodison Park party. Everton are very much on the beach right now. So you've got an Everton team that have already celebrated, already feel like probably the season's over. You've got a Newcastle team with everything to play for. No Branthwaite, no Tarkowski, I think. I reckon they could score a decent number of goals in this game. So I think Barnes and Gordon, for that reason, are really worth looking at. Gordon is just slightly ahead due to his historical numbers. So I'm backing here Gordon across what we know he can do. But recently, Barnes has been the one that's had the goal threat. You can see here, Gordon's goal threat since he's come back has been virtually non-existent. So I'm looking at it right now. If I sell Ismail Assar, I have 7 million. So if you look at the midfielders right now, I've got 7 million to replace Ismail Assar. The first player that I can afford, according to my own Raptor rankings, is Harvey Barnes. So there is some temptation for me there to potentially go for Harvey Barnes. The only concern I have is if they don't play a 5 at the back, then they have to squeeze 2 of Murphy, Gordon, Barnes in, unless Isak's out and they play all 3 of them and drop Wilson. So I suppose there is a small chance, but Harvey Barnes has started like every game since game week 26, 27. He's got 90 minutes in lots. Since he's come back into the starting 11, he's not had any fewer than 75 minutes in a given game. I think Harvey Barnes has to start this one. So yeah, there's some temptation there. If I don't go for Barnes, I then have Semenyo and Martinelli that I can both afford as well at that cheaper price. Again, if we're going back to the fixture play, then Semenyo and Martinelli have to be the ones at that cheaper price. Leicester and Southampton we spoke about already. My only thing on Semenyo and Martinelli is like they don't take pens, they don't take set pieces, and their data doesn't look particularly appealing. Like Semenyo's data has fallen off a cliff. He doesn't even take as many shots as he used to, and they're certainly not high quality. He doesn't carry much assist threat. And with Martinelli, I just, again, don't know that he starts. And then you might say, well, go for a Trossard, or go for a Havertz, or go for a Marino. Like, there are loads of Arsenal attackers. That's kind of the issue that I've got right now, is, again, I just don't know how full strength Arsenal go. And even if Arsenal go full strength, right, even if you think they put out a decent team, Marino, Havertz can both play as the 9, and Martinelli. Off the left, you've got Martinelli or Trossard. Off the right, you've got Nwaneri or Saka. You could even play Marino in midfield, which, yes, frees up one spot, but then Ødegaard's a bit of a doubt because potentially he could play that role. Like, I just don't know with Arsenal what's going to happen. So that's the only reason the Arsenal attackers outside of Saka are quite low down, is I can't confirm their minutes. And it feels silly buying your final transfer of the season to take a minutes risk when you've got other players that just feel a little bit more nailed on. So, other midfielders that are on my list to discuss then. So yeah, Kudus is another player that I think is potentially worth going for. I don't know if I'd want Bowen and Kudus, because West Ham can just drop, again, a bit of a stinker out of nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't create too many chances against Ipswich. I think they will, but you just never know. Cliver, if I feel like, if I'm a bit more confident on these minutes, I could still see myself buying Cliver this week, but I think I've seen enough to put me off. And then yeah, Marino and Trossard are the other two. I think I've covered most of the options I want to there. People might say, what about X player like Minte or something like that? Yeah, they're all fine. Like, if you've got a gut feeling about a player, just go for it. But yeah, I think if you don't own Jared Bowen this week, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you want to go a bit more differential at that same sort of price, Luis Diaz, if you're confident in a start, Gordon I really like, and then cheaper price, Barnes, Semenyo, Martinelli. I think as of right now, I'm going to swerve Bukayo Saka, but if I had an easy route to him, and again, maybe we get a leak that he starts, he could still be a fantastic buy. Let me know which midfielders you're looking at this week. So finally, just finishing off with the forwards. Again, I do think there is a standout, as with the midfield with Jared Bowen, and I do think it is EVANILSON. If you actually look at all of the fixtures for the other 7 outside of EVANILSON, they're all grey on the FPL sort of FDR fixture difficulty rating. I'm not necessarily sure I would pay too much attention to that because I don't think Watkins or Welbeck have a grey fixture, for example. But it does just go to show that there is one player with a standout fixture. And even if you look at opponent XGC per 90 over the last 10 game weeks, once again, there is a player with a standout fixture. You then combine that with over the last 10 game weeks, EVANILSON having the best non-penalty XG per 90 out of any player in the Premier League. You've got the most informed attacker against one of the, if not the worst defences at home in the final day. And again, no motivation for Bournemouth. I'm very aware of that. But I still think this will be an absolute goal fest. And they are playing at home. I do think teams playing at home are probably slightly less likely to rotate overall. So yeah, I really like EVANILSON. I think he'll get good minutes. And if Kluivert doesn't start, or again, if Kluivert doesn't get good minutes, whenever Kluivert's not on the pitch, EVANILSON is. So I just can't, even if you had even if you had 15 million and you could buy Erling Haaland, I still think EVANILSON's a better player to own. I think I would just bank the 10 million and just go EVANILSON. I still think Ollie Watkins is right up there if you don't own him already. I don't think Aston Villa will score more than 2 or 3 goals against United. I don't think it will be an absolute battering, but if they score 2 or 3, I once again do expect Ollie Watkins to be involved in that. And he does get a lot of big chances. He's missed the most big chances in the Premier League this season with 27, which isn't a great stat, but he's also scored quite a few goals. So for him to also miss 27 big chances just shows you how many big chances he does get. His data has dropped off a little bit across the last 10, but overall I still think he's great. Listen, if you've got the money for Erling Haaland, which isn't a lot of people, and you want to buy him and you want to captain him, by all means go for it. We know what he can do. But since coming back from injury, we've not necessarily seen him do that. He's not been massively involved. So I just don't think that Haaland would excite me that much. I think I would rather still, again, even if I had the 15 million, I think I would just go at EVANILSON. Wissa's in there. It's again one of those where if you're chasing rank and you want a different, don't go for Wissa. He's about 60 to 70% EO. He's just come off the back of a 10-pointer as well, so I expect his EO to go up even higher. I think at like those higher up ranks, he could be as high as sort of 75% going into 38. So if you're chasing, don't buy him. But if you're protecting, I still think he could do really well against Wolves. Gakpo could offer a really nice differential option. Again, if you know for a fact he starts, which is the reason he's low down, is you just can't confirm that. If you're a Liverpool fan, or we get a leak, or you just think that you can predict the minutes quite well, then by all means take that risk. And I think that he is the sort of player who, again, if I'm expecting Liverpool to score maybe 3, 4, 5 goals in this game, which I think they could, just given the nature of the game, then Gakpo will probably be involved in that. Welbeck is maybe a little bit low down, especially given that apparently, so we found out from Hertzler that João Pedro missed out due to personal reasons. That was what we were told in 37. He missed out due to personal reasons. I saw an article today, and I'm not sure if it's fully reliable, but it looked it. Apparently, he missed out because he had an altercation with, what's the word I'm looking for there? He had an altercation with Jean-Paul Van Hecker. So apparently, it sounds like he had a bit of an argument, maybe beyond that as well. And so apparently that was why he missed out. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing and I'm just basing it off the article that I read. But regardless, if João Pedro is not there in 38, which he probably will be, it's probably just a one-game thing, Welbeck could be on penalties, and his minutes have been pretty secure anyway. I think it would be pretty harsh in the most important game of their season for Brighton to secure 8th place to not start Danny Welbeck. And he's going to be playing against a Spurs side that have just played in the Europa League final. So I think for those reasons, Danny Welbeck has to be a consideration, especially if you're looking at that cheaper price, because he's the cheapest option on this list by 0.3 million. So like in some of my transfer options, I can't quite afford EVANILSON. Welbeck's a fine option. Chris Wood might feel low down. I just think if I'm predicting the way this game goes, I don't see Forest or Chelsea scoring too many goals. And that's going to be famous last words. It's going to be like 4-4 now, that game. But if they only score one, it could be Chris Wood. But I would rather back a game where I see a team scoring multiple goals. Chelsea are just a really, really good defence. 0.77 XGC per 90 in the last 10 game weeks. They're just defending extremely, extremely well. So I just think for that reason, I probably wouldn't go Chris Wood. Marmoush is just about crept onto the list. He scored an absolute banger in game week 37. And listen, they have absolutely everything to play for, City, and Fulham do not. I just think he's not really shown too much in the last few weeks in terms of getting those big chances. Like his data is still really, really strong across the last 10, but that is very much data carried from sort of 6, 7, 8 game weeks ago. More recently, he's just not getting as close to goal. If KDB starts, he loses set pieces. If Haaland starts, we probably expect him now to lose penalties, although he could take it again. He's just lost a bit of his appeal for me. But if I owned Marmoush, I'd almost definitely keep and start him. The only other players that aren't on here then is Cunha and Strand Larsen. Strand Larsen started and Cunha was on the bench. So that doesn't look great for Cunha's minutes in 38. But Strand Larsen did come off with a small injury. I've not yet seen an update on that. If Strand Larsen is injured, then you would probably expect, and again, he doesn't have to be, probably expect him to start Cunha. That being said, there is a world where they play like Menezes as the 9 with Bellegarde and Guedes off of him or something like that. They don't have to play Cunha even with Strand Larsen out. If Strand Larsen isn't out, then he's great. He had another goal and an assist in game week 37. So keep an eye on the situation at Wolves. You could definitely take a punt there. But I still think just EVANILSON's the guy. Unless you want to go super different because you think loads of people in your mini leagues will bring him in. If so, at that cheaper price, I mean, Danny Welbeck, João Pedro, whatever you think will be the situation for Brighton, they could be the ones to go for. Let me know what you're thinking with the forwards. So to recap, defenders, I think it's White, Kirkes, or Newcastle defence. Midfield, I think it's Jared, Bowen, but there are some other spicy punts there. Forward line, it probably is EVANILSON. Please trust your gut feeling, though, this week, because if you can't trust your gut feeling in Game Week 38, when can you? So guys, there you have it. That is my final Game Week preview video of the season ahead of Game Week 38. Thank you for the support on this series all season. I know there haven't been absolutely every week, but I still appreciate those of you that prefer this sort of in-depth analysis and a deep dive into the stats. So thank you for the support. Let's aim for 1,200 likes on this video. I'd really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe ahead of the final couple of videos and next season as well. But until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.